This is the Relevant Podcast.
It's episode 995, and it's the Relevant Podcast here in Orlando. I'm your host, Cameron Strang. And joining me from Loverland, Virginia, is Jesse Carey.
Hello, hello.
From Austin, Texas, author, speaker, podcaster, Jamie Ivey.
Hey, guys.
And Derek is out this morning, but sitting in once again from San Diego, California, our very own Gabrielle Griffin.
Hi, guys.
We have a great show in store for you today. Coming up later, Eugene Cho joins us. He is one of our favorite faith leaders. He used to be a pastor in Seattle. Now he heads up Bread for the World. He is an amazing guy. We wanted to talk to him about kind of the challenges a lot of nonprofits are facing now, especially with inflation. Donations are going down, things like that. And then talk about how we can get involved and help, make a difference and stuff. So don't miss that conversation. It's an important one. And at the end of the show, instead of a game, Tyler's he's on a little mini vacation right now. We have a little table topics, a little cast interaction segment. So don't miss that as well. But before we get rolling, a little behind the scenes. This is an audio medium, but we share pictures with each other. Mm-hmm. And Jamie, it kind of seems like you're having a rough morning right now.
Listen, I'm running to the office to make it for this podcast, which, if you listened last week, I was late. Right. And so I get here and I tell Corey, I was like, all I have to do is make me one cup of coffee. Give me time to make one cup of coffee.
Sure.
So I go in, plug my computer in, the mic set up. I'm ready to go make my coffee. I pull the creamer out of the fridge. And what do you do when you pull the creamer out of the fridge?
Unscrew the cap.
You hold it in your hand and pour it into your coffee.
No one shakes it up? No, you shake it.
No, I do. Yeah, I use oat milk, so you got to shake it.
Me too, oat milk. So I pull it out of the fridge. I just gave it a quick shake. Lid goes off. Milk goes everywhere.
Oh, no.
And here I am. I'm like, y'all are waiting on me. Now I have to get on the floor and clean up spilled milk. There was no crying, but I was like, there were curse words.
Yeah.
I have so much empathy for you.
Yeah. So I had milk all over the floor, but I did finally get my coffee. But I hate starting mornings like that. That is what I have to say about mornings like that. I hate it.
Yeah.
I will say this. So Gabs works 3 hours behind the East Coast. So like we have people in Paris and all the way to California. So we have a team meeting at 11 o'clock Eastern. And Gabs comes on, which is 8 o'clock her time. So she's usually just gotten up. And it is 3 out of 4 meetings that Gabs will either be a minute or two late or a minute or two into the meeting, all of a sudden her camera goes off. And every time it's because she poured coffee all over herself. Because she's scrambling and trying to get settled real fast, and coffee goes everywhere.
No, I don't know what it is. It's like I finally have determined that I just have to slow down in every area. I just have to slow down, because what'll happen is I'll get stressed out thinking about like the 100 different things I got to do, and then I'll get the stressed out shakes. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where you're like super worried about having to do a million things at once, and your hands actually start like jittering because you're just like, oh my gosh, I have to.
That could be the
done.
coffee too.
Well, yeah, that. But I do. I mean, I'm a caffeine junkie, so
my PSA for everyone is just make sure the lid's on before you shake up your creamer in the morning. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
I've had numerous coffee incidents, and it's really the canary in the coal mine. If you have a bad coffee incident in the morning, just be prepared, because
the rest of the day,
you probably, I'm not trying to speak that over anyone, but I'm just saying sometimes it precludes other absent-mindedness later in the day. You know
the song "Not Today." The devil knows not today. That song, yeah. Whenever that happens to me, I put that song on.
It's funny you say
today.
that. I made coffee the other morning, and I put coffee into I put the coffee grinds into the water reservoir.
Oh
my
no!
Goodness.
And it was a whole mess.
Worst.
And everyone's waiting on coffee. And that's when, we had a little worship service there. Not today,
you gotta
devil.
just take a breather.
Not today.
You've already your sinister tricks have already manipulated me into putting coffee grinds into the water reservoir. Who knows what he has planned for me today? Not today. Behind me, Satan.
You know what? I don't think I've put two and two together until this moment that how your first beverage of the day goes is probably how your day's going to go. Because, like, as we were talking about on our last podcast,
Those airport
Don't speak that over me.
if your first beverage of the day is a Guinness, your day is going to go a different direction than if your first cup of the day is a cup of coffee that you pour all over yourself.
Let's be real. The Guinness day is probably going to be pretty great. You know, pretty chill. Okay? Guinness is a beverage that old men at Irish pubs have, and I've never seen one of them have a non-chill afternoon.
They are clearly in the mindset of enjoying life.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
exactly.
this is interesting. So your first beverage of the day. I mean, that is a key moment.
We just got to slow down.
Yeah.
It is true because I like to have water beside my bed, you know, like just in case you wake up,
because you're a human.
Yeah, exactly. We've all been there. You reach for the cell phone or whatever, and the cord gets tangled and the water goes flying, and then you're cleaning up water either in the middle of the night or very early. It's a bad. It's
no one's happy about that.
No one. It's, you know, the comforter is soaked. You know, it's a whole mess.
I will be honest.
Yeah.
This has happened to me so many times now that I'm to the point where when it happens, I really do just take a deep breath and I'm like, well, this has happened again. How can I avoid this moving forward?
Yep.
I will try. But I just take it.
I sleep with a Camelback on with a straw. I have like an IV bag next to the bed and I just grab a straw hooked up to it and take a sip.
The great thing is I can see this.
Gabs' husband made them get one of those kid pee covers that you put on a mattress because she spills.
Yeah,
she spills stuff every night.
That is true. That is actually a layer on our mattress.
You lie.
It's a plastic. There's a you've never
so
heard
you get
of
into bed and it like crunches? Like you hear the
No, you can cover that up.
Yeah, it's covered with like layers on layers on layers. But
Gabs,
I do.
You have no children in your life, but you have a pee layer.
I am a child.
It is. Listen, it is understandable. I've spilled numerous beverages early in the morning. You know, it's. Yeah,
have grace for yourself.
I'm being I'm getting more comfortable with dehydration than I am with spilling water early in the morning.
Who are you people? I can't remember the last time I spilled anything. Like this is so bizarre that you spill things so often that you have to put plastic layers on your fabrics. That is.
I just think, Cameron, you're a very even keel person and just like nothing shakes you. I've never seen anything like it. We're clearly just not built that way. Like stuff gets to us, you know?
I will say I deal with a lot of spills. Cameron witnessed a spill at my home one evening. And he saw about 4 beverages go down in one foul swoop. They happen, you know?
We were
Was it your children though?
No, we were poolside, and his lovely wife Dana was bringing us poolside beverages on a tray. She gets right up to us and goes, "There was a gust of wind, and whoa!" And like it was like,
well, the problem is one fell, and then the liquid
took them all
disperses
down.
the weight, and then they start slowly going down in slow motion. You know,
and then she's like, "Whoa!" trying to save it, you know, and like, nah, they're all gone.
Poor Dana looking at the drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully you lovely listeners have not had any beverage issues so far in your day today, and it's going to be a good day. All right. That'll do it. Stay tuned. Up next, it's Slices.
Baby, ooh, as I go. Into the sea, out of fire, all that burning. Into the sea, out of fire, all that burning.
You're listening to Yeah Yeah Yeahs. The song is Burning. Well, today's show is brought to you by He Gets Us, a national campaign bringing the story of Jesus to every zip code. For many who are skeptical of the Christian faith, Jesus feels irrelevant and untouchable. They may think he lived in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. How could he possibly understand what we're going through today? But the Bible gives us so many examples of Jesus facing much of what we're experiencing now. He dealt with anxiety. He was fed up with politics, and he knew how it felt to be isolated. He Gets Us is helping skeptics relate to Jesus by telling his story on national media through the lens of 2022. In just the first few months earlier this year, the campaign had more than 150 million views on YouTube, not to mention Facebook, Instagram, and of course, broadcast networks. You're going to be seeing a lot of He Gets Us spots, especially if you watch any of these fall sports that are kicking off right now. Visit HeGetsUsPartners.com to learn more about the team behind the campaign, as well as resources and group studies. And if you haven't checked out the main site, go to HeGetsUs.com. Okay, it's time for
Slices.
What do you have, Jesse?
All right, so I wanted to talk about the story with actor Jonah Hill. I don't know. Have you guys seen the kind of story that's going around with him?
Yeah, we covered it. Yeah,
he's getting ready to release a new documentary at film festivals this fall. That's called Studs, and it's STUTZ. And anyway, the film talks about his own personal mental health journey and his work in therapy and counseling. And one of the things that he announced coming into approaching the release of this project is that he has decided that he will no longer be doing press and publicity to promote his work. Because, as he explains in a kind of a long statement, which I encourage people to go to relevantmagazine.com and read, he talks about, he's spent 2 decades where he would experience anxiety attacks. And it really took some, kind of professional and personal reflection to determine that, constant media appearances and publicly facing events were a real cause of those. And it reminded me of the story of Naomi Osaka, the young tennis star, who was fined tens of thousands of dollars last year when she opted not to do press following major matches, basically because it was causing her major mental health concerns.
Can I ask, because I remember when that made the news, what happened in that situation with her? Like, I never heard anything after the initial news.
Yeah, she ended up getting fined. By
and that was it. And now she does press again, or she's still
I think
abstaining?
It's limited. I think she will occasionally, but either way, her decision as well as Jonah Hill's has sparked a lot of dialogue, and it's something I've always thought about this a lot, mainly because being in the media business, press and publicity tours are a way that outlets and audiences can hear directly from talent. It provides them with an incentive to do interviews and appearances. But I think reading Jonah Hill's statement, reading Naomi Osaka's, I definitely understand the side of it. Like, hey, a good way to get attention to either a sporting event or a film or a television project or a book or an album or whatever, is to go talk to the media and kind of drum up dialogue and interest. And the idea is that's going to make that property more financially successful. So I see the case of wanting talent to do that. But I do think taking an honest reflection of how different aspects of different people's jobs cause, mental health concerns, beyond just people who have to do press. Because I think a lot of people could see how public speaking or having to do interviews where people are asking you very difficult personal questions constantly would be a cause of stress, anxiety, and potentially the root of some mental health issues. But I also think, and Jonah Hill acknowledged this in his statement, that he realized he's in a position of privilege where he has the ability to say, I don't want to do this anymore, where not everyone does, Right. But I do, I was kind of thinking about how this would apply to just people maybe in jobs that are less high profile, but have aspects of their jobs that cause them more stress, anxiety, and mental health issues. And just, I think coming into an era where we can recognize, mental health stuff, and I think it'd be beneficial for more places of employment to have honest conversations about people with their employers about aspects of their job that might cause different stresses and anxieties, because everyone's different. Everyone excels at different things. And I feel like a lot of times there's a one size fits all approach to things. Well, it's like, well, this is how it's done. You go on the publicity tour, you do this press conference, or, you could apply that to different things in your own job. But I do think just being more sensitive to how different individuals are wired some people like doing stuff like that. There are certain things that I might not find stressful that someone else might, find stressful. But I think the more we understand the impacts of mental health, hopefully the more open, dialogue about this would become. Because even if you're taking the sports team analogy, I wouldn't expect someone who is really good at one aspect of their game to play a different position just because another player happens to not be good at that. Like, I think having jobs and different duties be adaptable, not just to physical or educational, qualifications, but for understanding different people have different mental health concerns or emotional strengths and weaknesses. I think it could benefit a lot of people, even if there are, some quote unquote negative consequences. I also think it could be spun to a positive where more people are empowered to do things that are their strengths and not have to be overly focused on things that are not.
I have a question though. So think about school, think about college, think about going out for sports. There's a point in your life when you don't have experience with the thing that you now have experience with, before it. And let's say you have to give a speech for a history class or something in front of the whole class. You have to give a presentation. You've never done that before. You're terrified. You are restless. You're nervous. You're not sleeping the night before. You're terrified, right? You have to do it because everybody has to do it. And it develops a skill set in you. You didn't die. I made it. I did okay. And it builds some confidence in you. It builds some, muscle memory for the next time you're going to have to be in front of people. And you get experience by doing it. And if so, on one hand, that is a normal part of life. We all are put into situations that stretch us. Maybe we don't want to do it. I don't want to pay tax, whatever it is, but we have to do it. And that's part of life. If we were to listen to just the person saying, no, it's bad for my mental health, I don't want to give the speech in front of the class, it makes me too anxious. And then we just say, okay, then you don't have to. Then that person regresses in life. They don't grow. They don't develop. What's the balance is my question.
Yeah.
I think it's a little different because I've heard professional athletes, like you mentioned already, talk about that's my job is to get out on the field and play football. I didn't sign up to be have to go to all the press stuff afterwards and before. I think that it gets hard when we as a society hold people who are in a professional career, whether that be athletics or movies or music, and say, you owe us this interview. You owe me press because you signed up for this. And they're really no, I signed up to play football, or I signed up to be an actor, or I signed up to put on concerts. That's where I feel the tension a little bit with that is sometimes it's coming from we as society are demanding you give us whatever we want because we pay your salary in a sense.
Yeah, but if I'm the team owner or I'm the studio, I need people to know about this project. I need people to know that you're part of this project, that you're excited about this project, that get them interested in the project. Then we'll sell tickets, and those tickets pay for your role. You can't say I'm a professional athlete and the crowd doesn't matter. What the fans want doesn't matter to me. It is part of the equation. Professional athletics is different than just being an athlete. You have a job to sell tickets,
But I do think there is some degree, like I said, of nuance and balance there of there's one thing about trying different things and overcoming kind of challenging circumstances. But when you realize that there could be parts of a lifestyle or a profession that are the source of mental health decline, taking an honest look at what would the results of me requesting that there be some, kind of change in what my responsibilities are because this is causing me distress, but I'm really good at this. And maybe someone else, could I just think that degree of awareness, because if someone has a physical limitation, we're very quick to try to find resolutions so that their physical limitations might not be a hindrance to their job performance. I just think that when we're looking at mental health, I know it's, sometimes a little bit more opaque externally, but developing that understanding, I think could, and that sort of sensitivity and flexibility could help people in the long term be able to excel, because we see mental health the same as we see physical, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's a great conversation to have.
I feel like this could be a really in-depth conversation if you let it, because it really boils down to balance is what it boils down to. Balance between, okay, if you're not happy with what's going on in if your work life is causing you too much stress or anxiety, then you need to be pouring into other things in your life. So if you educate yourself on, okay, I'm aware of this in this job, but that's not what I want to be pouring into. I'm better at this, rather than going to your employer, if that's not an option at the time or what have you, pour into it in ways that you can outside of work, you know, or explore other opportunities. I hate to say explore other opportunities because we live in such a time where it's easy for somebody to hop job to job to job to job to try different things. But
Yeah, I like to me, there's just as a parent, you know, and obviously I'm thinking about helping to develop character in my kid, and like if I was to just listen to my kid, what he would want to do is just sit and play video games nonstop and not be challenged ever. And so it's like that balancing act of how do I push him out of his comfort zone in a healthy way so he can, you know, be challenged and then develop new skill sets and get confidence, frankly, you know. But then there is a line of we might have pushed him too far and he really has significant mental health trauma because of it. And it's like finding that balance, you know, not just for yourself, but for the people in your life is really something.
And with these two examples, you know, these are, you know, I know Naomi Osaka is very young, but these are people who have had experience doing press. It was only after some degree of self-reflection of, hey, I tried this, I did it, but I realized I think I will perform better for everyone if we can find a solution that plays to my mental and emotional strengths, just like you do for my talent or for my workplace strengths, you know.
I think that's fair. It's really fair, especially if you're in a position that's in that kind of position where you're in a position of great importance, where other people are really looking to you for things where you kind of don't have the luxury of not acquiescing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
What's
think
that
it's just
word?
Acquiescing? Is it acquiesce?
What's
You've never
Just
heard
go
it?
with it. Just go with it.
I think
Say it with
I
confidence.
think you got it, Gabs.
Yeah, it is. It's like where you basically conform to what another person's needs
Yeah.
and give them what they need. So I
sure?
feel like
Like a
there's
chameleon.
Yeah. So if you don't have that luxury of, you know.
Yeah, I think just more open dialogue, understanding that people are wired differently and not everyone has to have a one size fits all, you know, solution. And sometimes people work better when their roles are adaptive to their strengths and their weaknesses, you know.
Very true. Okay, Gabs, what do you have?
Okay. So you might have heard it come to light maybe a couple days ago, but apparently we had the shortest day ever a couple of days ago. It was June 29th.
Do you know what month we're in?
Couple of
You said a couple days ago. I'm like, this is back in June.
June, July. Oh my goodness. I was reading it. Never mind. Can we restart? Let's restart.
Nope.
No, we're restarting. Don't you do this to me.
No.
Oh, they will. They will.
It's staying. All right.
I'm going to have to learn how to not let you guys bully me around.
It's a life skill you need to develop. That is true.
Apparently. Okay. Well, you know what? We had the shortest day ever on June 29th. It was 1.59 milliseconds shorter than the regular, your average day, which in your average day, you have 86,400 seconds. So honestly, it's not, you wouldn't have noticed it.
How
but
did
it is really
anyone know
interesting.
this?
Yeah. How do they know this?
So they've actually been keeping an eye on it. It started back in 2016. The Earth started to accelerate
A few days ago.
faster.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm done. I'm done. Anyways, back to this. So a senior researcher at Moscow State University. His name is Leonid Sotov. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that.
Home of the
I'm
fighting
thinking that's
Russians.
right.
The fighting Russians.
Oh,
University of Moscow.
Okay, well, yeah. His explanation for why this is happening is climate change, is that the glaciers are melting, the ocean is rising. I guess the tide rising affects the velocity of the globe. So the swooshing of the tides being larger is causing the Earth to accelerate. So this isn't actually we're going to see more of this. We're going to see it accelerate a little bit more. Not too noticeable, but over the next coming years, we will see it accelerate.
So we're going faster. So that made the day
Yes.
shorter. Wow.
Yes. So what will happen if that does continue? Because they have no idea why this is happening, or they can't really predict. They assume it will go faster, but they can't really predict.
Yeah.
Their resolution is to come up with another way of telling time. And it would essentially be a negative leap second. A negative leap second.
Wow.
Yeah, so it would subtract time. Instead of us telling time as time is, we would be subtracting time, which I don't fully understand. It sounds confusing. I don't think they have it fully worked out yet. But basically, it skips 1 second. So it puts us back to where we should be, or very close to where we should be, or would be to our time that we know, which is just
You know,
baffling.
Jamie, how they say as you get older, it feels like the years are going faster. It is. It's
they
true.
are.
Literally.
It's happening.
A millisecond a year. I knew June was feeling crazy. I knew something was off. There it
Right.
is. This, you have just told me what happened to the end
Yep.
of June.
I actually agree with that. June was an interesting month. But okay, I usually send our all staff meeting every time we have our all staff. And if I am a minute off, I swear, just a minute off, somebody inevitably messages me and all staff and was like, Gabs is late. It's usually Cameron.
It's usually Tyler. What are you saying? It's always.
It's usually you.
It's
now
always
you have
Tyler.
now you have a reason. Like you're just
Okay,
going off the
yeah.
tides.
Yeah.
So I have been going off of my stove clock for as long as I've lived here, and I have never changed it. The power's never gone out. I was going off my stove clock. I was a minute off, and I swear that was in June. I'm swearing that was in June.
So I like.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, it's hard to debate that excuse. You know.
Yeah. I was late for staff meeting because the
Earth is
climate
spinning
change.
faster.
Yeah, the oceans are bigger, and who can tell time anymore, right? It's all changing. It's all relative. Okay, Jamie, what do you have?
Okay, so do any of you guys have a show that you have watched where you unintentionally, like it wasn't part of it, you learned a life-saving tip? Okay, so did anyone watch Punky Brewster? No, this is a long, Gabs, you were probably not even born. Punky Brewster,
She
one
wasn't
time,
born, first of all.
one of them got locked in a refrigerator and that was outside, and then she passed. Like, I am so terrified.
Wait,
If my
finish
kids
that
go-
sentence. You said you were locked in the refrigerator and she passed? Like the character
No,
died?
she didn't die. Sorry. As I was saying that, I couldn't remember if she passed out or not, so I stopped. But I just have this memory of like, don't go into a fridge, and so
Right.
I get really anxious around things like that. But this is
You
what the
get
story
anxious
is.
around fridges?
I get anxious about things that are outside that you could get locked in. I get anxious around things that are outside that you get locked in. Like when I had little kids, I mean, all I could think about was Punky Brewster's friend getting locked in that fridge.
I'm sorry, but this is never going to get lived down. Don't let Jamie in your kitchen.
Not your fridge in your kitchen.
Listen, our second office would have given you hives. Okay, so this is back in like 2004 to 2008. We moved into and renovated it and everything, but the building was a former American Express credit card processing center, like where they literally
Okay.
like made the credit cards and then mailed them out, like put your number on it. So what's built into this building? A huge vault. Vault, probably 40 feet long by 20 feet wide. Metal vault on all sides with the big old bank vault door. Okay. So we move in, Relevant Media Group, and there's a vault in the middle of the office. And so what do? I put all the interns in there. So like,
Oh my gosh.
all the intern desks, that was the intern area, was the vault, right?
Does the
But
door shut?
If they
we
get locked in, it's the interns.
it's a real bank vault door. We never closed it because I don't know how we would have opened it. So yeah,
I would
It
have
was
had
just-
anxiety that somebody would have been walking by,
Yeah, and it just-
accidentally hit the door, and then it closed.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I'm stuck
Yeah.
in there, and I miss dinner. And what
I
do we
know.
do?
I
Yeah.
know. There was 2 like air vents for like, people who might get trapped. There was like air vents that you get in, but they were very, very small because, obviously thieves. So yeah, it was this huge metal vault in the middle of our office. You would not have enjoyed working there.
Okay, so yeah, see, I just told you a little bit about my childhood that I'm still wounded by, but apparently these things can turn out good. So right now, it is the 30th anniversary of a Simpson classic, the episode Homer at Bat. Now, let me tell you, I was not allowed to watch The Simpsons
No, me
growing up.
neither.
Which
Neither was I.
Oh, on Sunday, my pastor referenced The Simpsons, and I was just like, man, I totally missed this whole part of life. But anyhow, 30th anniversary of this episode called Homer at Bat. And in this episode, Homer eats too many donuts and starts choking, and his coworkers don't know what's going on, but then they see the poster, the poster in restaurants and places of the Heimlich remover.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that they save Homer's life since he went on to have plenty more episodes. But since it's the 30th anniversary, you guys were sharing over on the Relevant webpage about how there have been stories of people coming forward saying, hey, I was with somebody, they were choking, I remembered this episode and I saved their life. And so maybe some of this mindless TV that we talked about last week, who knows what we're going to learn and what we're going to pick up on. But thank you for Homer at Bat, because that episode has saved people's lives.
I've read several stories of people who learned how to do CPR because of The Office had the staying alive, and the person saw that, and then somebody had a heart attack, and they just did what they saw in The Office, and it saved the person's life. It's crazy.
That's in the story too, and that happened to an Arizona man. He found a woman unresponsive, and that's what he remembered was from The Office.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, me
what a
too.
great story.
I took CPR class 20 years ago. I don't remember it, but I remember The Office. So it's yeah.
I took a CPR class a couple of years ago, and it was traumatizing. So I definitely remember it.
What was traumatizing about it?
You had dummies that you actually put the panels on. They did the CPR, but they also did where you use the charger panels too. And the whole charger. Actually, it was my fault. I put the charger panels on the dummy and I joked and I was like, not clear. And everybody jumped, laughed,
your
but
joke
then it was it didn't go. It went over for half of them, and then the other half, they were older women that were not happy with me. It was for the YMCA.
Oh, man.
I'll never forget.
We've learned 3 things here today, guys. CPR, the Heimlich, and do not go in fridges that are sitting outside in a junkyard, because you could get locked in forever.
Don't be an intern be an intern at Relevant Media Group from 2004 to 2008. Yeah. All right. Well, that'll do it for Slices. Stay tuned. Up next, Eugene Cho joins us.
But if you got my back, I got you. Set your worry free. You got to shake, shake. You got to shake, shake, shake. Got to shake, shake. You got to shake, shake, shake. I don't analyze it. Look to where I've been. Wanna get on track. Go back to where it all began. Let it book it, ride it. Level out that thing. It might take you down. You rise back up if you just shake. You got to shake, shake. You got to shake.
You're listening to Santa Gold. The song is Shake. Well, today's show is also brought to you by the Lumo Project. Lumo is a visual Bible project that helps you see the gospel through a brand new lens. If you've ever wondered if gospels talked about the big questions we face in life today, like fear, anger, worry, relationships, well, yeah, it's all in there. And with Lumo, you can experience Jesus' teachings and story in a visual way. Check out Lumo's free scripture videos by searching the Lumo Project at YouTube. And for other free resources, including small group studies and more, check out lumoproject.com. That's LUMO project.com. They're awesome. Our guest today is Eugene Cho. He's a pastor and author and the president and CEO of Bread for the World, a Christian advocacy group seeking to address world hunger. Eugene sat down with our very own downtown Emily Brown to discuss the new challenges Bread for the World is facing and how the church can help end world hunger. Here's our conversation with Eugene Cho.
We were talking about Bread for the World. So I would love to know kind of really just how things are going. I know COVID really messed everything in the world up. And so let's start maybe in the US. How's world hunger been? How has COVID changed it specifically?
When you go to a grocery store, research tells us that certain groceries on an average are costing 12% more than it did a year ago. We're talking about gasoline prices going up and the list goes on. And so as a result, if I can be somewhat candid, when I go to the grocery store, I guess in my privilege, I'll complain. I'll whine because the bread that I want costs 20% more. But the reality is, if I really want that bread, or if my wife really wants that bread, I'm going to go ahead and purchase that bread. But that's not the reality. That's not an option for many neighbors in our country and certainly around the world. But since we're going to be focusing right now on domestic hunger, 1 out of every 10 people in the United States are having, they're basically having hunger security issues. For Black families, it's the rates of hunger are twice as much as well. In the wealthiest nation in the world, in the United States, I just think it's unacceptable that there are 13 million children that are food insecure right now. So that's kind of gives you a high level perspective of what's going on. And of course, when you see research and reports coming out of food banks and church food pantries, you know that those lines that existed a couple of years ago during the national lockdown, people thought, you know what, we don't see those lines anymore. This issue is now dissipated, and that's not the case. We have neighbors in our country that are still struggling with hunger issues. And so it's really important for us to know it and to consider how can we be a part of some solution.
So I grew up in the South, and there's a very common message that you really just need to help yourself, that it's not great to reach out for help. I know men especially feel that way. And so that is obviously a terrible message to be hearing, especially when you really need help. So how can the church reach out to people in a way that doesn't shame them, but is just truly encouraging and helpful to them?
That's a great question. And that needs to be a podcast in itself, like an entire series. And so Emily and Eugene launches a new podcast on normalizing certain things.
I like it.
You know, so I think there's a few things that would come up. And you know, for one, I know maybe we are using this word a lot, but I love the fact that we're using this word a lot, and it's the word empathy. Is to place ourselves in the situation that others might be at. It's compassion, it's connection, it's to understand. And theologically, as Christians, this theology of the body of Christ, if anyone should get it, it's got to be us. Mm-hmm. Like, this is part of our very identity. And so I think we've got to keep speaking about these things, and not just speaking about it as intellectual abstracts, but again, understanding that Jesus, our Lord and Savior, not just a good moral teacher, but the person that we say we follow, we see this deep empathy and compassion. And it's not just empathy and compassion, it's friendship and relationship. He chooses to engage in friendship and relationship. But I think one of the ways that we can normalize this is we can speak about it, particularly from stage and from the pulpit, in a way that it's not a project. Sometimes one of the most dangerous and unjust things, like, there's a danger in trying to do justice unjustly. And I think one of the ways in which we do this is that we treat those who struggle with hunger and poverty as projects. And people were never intended or meant to be projects. These are our mothers and fathers. These are our sisters and brothers. These are our uncles and aunts. These are part of our very community. Again, the body of Christ. For me, the reason why hunger is such an important issue is that it fits in and aligns so much with what I believe to be a biblical mandate for human flourishing. Like, God desires for people to flourish, and flourishing can't be possible without right relationship with God, right relationship with one another, right relationship with creation. But we also know that, yes, it's true that man does not live on bread alone, but we also know that Jesus was deeply committed and had compassion for those physically, their bodies were not receiving enough food and nutrition, right? John chapter 6, where Jesus feeds the multitudes of people, he teaches, but he also has compassion on their physical bodies as well. And so I think that's a way that we can try to normalize and build more compassion and empathy.
how has COVID and even like you said, like inflation, so many other things, how has that affected world hunger? And what is Bread for the World doing to address those different instances?
We talked about 12% inflation cost of groceries in the United States. Prior to COVID, in some of the most vulnerable communities around the world, researchers tell us that approximately that some of the more impoverished communities, they spend about 40 to 50% of their income on food. Just let that sink in for a second. So just before all of the craziness of the last 2.5, 3 years, they're spending about 40 to 50% of their income on food. And now COVID, now climate, now conflict, now rising costs, it literally becomes a matter of life and death. And I know that sounds overly sensationalistic and dramatic, and I'm not trying to be. That's the situation. So right now, 49 million people, brink of famine, 811 million people rising, going to bed hungry every single night. The United Nations predicted about 1.8 billion people could be affected and enter into poverty and hunger as a result of all that's going on right now. So Bread for the World, we're like urging our lawmakers to do, again, all that we can. And we're grateful for that. A few months ago, we were part of a coalition of organizations and advocacy, NGOs, that were able to advocate for a $5 billion emergency humanitarian food, nutrition, and humanitarian assistance as part of the Ukrainian bill. During that time, we were suggesting we can't just focus on Ukraine. That Ukraine's important, but let's not forget Afghanistan. Let's not forget Tigray and Ethiopia. Let's not forget Yemen. Let's not forget South Sudan. Let's not forget Myanmar. All of these things are going on. And in today's world where our attention span goes from one thing to another, whatever is the hot topic of the news, Bread for the World, we're trying to encourage the church, individuals, and certainly our lawmakers to say, this is a massive epidemic that's going on right before us. We've got to keep and focus and do something about it. Let me just share one thing. 2 years ago, the largest industry that spent the most amount of money lobbying in this country were pharmaceuticals, by far. The largest investment by a company in lobbying was a very small company called Facebook, now called Meta. And in a democracy, I get it. They can go ahead and utilize those resources. My challenge to the believer that's listening, my challenge to leaders and pastors that are listening, is who's advocating for our neighbors who are struggling with hunger and poverty, who can't afford to send lobbyists, if you will. And so Bread for the World wants to partner with your church, wants to partner with Christians, individuals, so that we can continue to invite you into that process so that together we can form a choir to let our elected leaders know, let's do our part to curb, to fight, and to ultimately end hunger.
That was Eugene Cho. Make sure to check out the amazing work they're doing at their website, bread.org, bread.org. Stick around. Up next, we got a little special table topic segment. Don't want to miss it.
It's so hard to watch you walk away. It's so hard to face another day. It's so hard to watch you walk away. Away, to watch you walk away, to watch you walk away. And I thought back in November, this would all get a little.
You're listening to Bay Ledges. The song is Walk Away. Okay, so every once in a while, we like to just, kick back and get to know the cast a little bit more. Derek's not here this week. Gabs is sitting in. So I grabbed a selection of get to know you icebreaker questions. I like to call them table topics. And I figured I would just do a little potpourri, a little round the horn. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's go.
Love
Let's
it.
do it. All right. Here we go. In no particular order. If you could only have one sense, so I'll restate them for you: sight, taste, hearing, touch, and smell for the rest of your life. One sense for the rest of your life. Which one would you choose and why?
I would probably, the old saying that if you like when you lose one sense, the other ones get stronger, you know?
Uh-huh.
I would choose, it's going to be an odd choice for a lot of people, but I would choose to have smell because inevitably I would have the greatest nose on the planet. I would be like a human bloodhound.
You'd be walking
People
around in the
would
dark
seek my
just smelling
nose.
stuff. You couldn't even feel anything. Like if you bumped into something, you're just smelling
If
stuff.
my understanding of how all this works, I will have the greatest nose in the history of humanity. And I will be utilized for everything from like perfume and cologne companies, fragrance companies will want my services. Like I said, old British detectives and
But Jesse,
investigators.
in the same line of thinking, let's say you have sight. Sight would be my choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking sight just because you could read, you could be intellectually stimulated, even if you can't hear or taste anything. But in your line of thinking, I would have the best peepers in the world. I could be spotting raccoons at 2 miles away.
But here's the thing: they already have binoculars. Okay, that exists, dude. Okay, it's very.
Super smell.
I don't think that smell technology. I've read this
hey.
actually is very unsophisticated. Okay,
So what would enhanced touch be? What would super touch be?
again, we already.
I need to know.
Yeah, well, use your imagination, friends.
All right, ladies, which one and why?
Was hearing one of them?
Yes, that's a sense.
Okay, well, I didn't know if you listed that off. I didn't hear you rattle that. I would go with hearing because music.
Over sight.
Yeah, I would go with music because, well, think about it. Your voice is the one thing that's like completely unique to you. Like you might look like somebody, but your voice is not going to sound like somebody else's voice. I feel like a voice is completely unique to each person, and it's something you can quickly recognize. And I feel like I wouldn't want to give music up. I feel like I experience the closest I feel with God is through worship. So that would be like
But see, if I have sight, I can read the Bible. And
oh, that's true. But you could have somebody read the Bible to you, and 2 is 1, where 2 is 1.
Listen.
You know the Holy Spirit is there. Have somebody read it to you.
God invented our senses. I was going to say something, but I'm stopping myself because I feel like it would be sacrilegious for me to say I would try to experience God through smell. And I'm just going to stop.
I was waiting.
Oh my gosh.
And not say anything about. I mean, theoretically, I don't know if we could get a theologian if N.T. Wright could jump on and let me know
Oh my
those
gosh.
thoughts.
If the only sense you have is smell, the only sense, like you can't feel touch, you can't hear,
nothing.
you can't see.
You're just a
you
nose.
smell.
You're just
a
a
blob.
nose. Oh.
Jesse, your son has not gotten old enough yet. But I will tell you, the last thing I would want to save is my
Right.
sense of smell having a middle school son right now. I'm just telling you.
Again, there are spiritual implications that you guys aren't even pondering that I could find a whole new spiritual practice here.
Jamie,
I'm sure.
Jamie,
I'm gonna go with sight.
Yeah, okay, good.
I'm gonna go with sight. Yeah, like I want to be able to see the world around me.
Okay, here we go. I want to see if I'm going to bump into something. I mean, really, that's the thing. Okay, here we go. Next one is a would you rather. Would you rather be a giant that everyone can always see or a microscopic size that no one can see? And why?
Big, destroy everything.
I mean, this is basically just like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Oh my gosh, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, see, for that reason, I would go microscopic because if you're a giant, you're going to think about either way.
But you get eaten by everything. You're bottom of the food chain. You're stepped on. You're an ant.
But there's a lot of like logistics to this that I feel like we need to think through. Like, do I get one of those little like little ships that they use in like in the Magic School Bus when they go up the nose and go into the body and they're zipping around, because otherwise, if I'm microscopic, it's going to take me forever just to walk across a normal room. Like that's like 6 miles for a tiny, you know.
That's what I'm
saying. So do I get a little microscopic little ship, like a little
but you could hitch a ride. Regardless, I mean, you could like
get on the back of your dog,
get onto a skateboard or a dog or whatever. Yeah, that's how you get around. I would go microscopic because you could go in any room. You'll never be seen. You can see everything. You can experience everything. If you're a giant, you experience nothing. You're just seeing roofs and trees down there.
But how big are we talking? How big are we talking? If we're talking a giant, how big feet?
A giant that everybody can always see.
That's huge.
It's like
like everyone on Earth?
Yes.
I need specifics. Because I mean, like if I'm a decent size,
how would you go to the bathroom?
I could buy a private island, hang out on that island for the rest of my life, and never deal with anyone ever.
Yeah, but if you're microscopic, you could have like a grain of sand, basically, and that could be your own private island. You could have
that's true.
That's true.
You could put me in a terrarium. Like that like snakes.
Pros and cons.
And I'd be like, oh man, I got an exotic wonderland at my disposal.
Did y'all see that terrible movie where I think Matt Damon starred in it, where they signed up to get downsized? I think it's called Downsized.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Don't go see it. It's dumb. But that's what this makes me think of. They all decided that, and then they lived in this whole new world.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was. I thought the movie was so dumb, but that's what you're asking us. Would we sign up to be downsized?
Okay, we need to add a movie review segment to this show where Jamie reviews movies. Most of them, she's only seen the first half. So she's just going to mainly do the first half of the movie. But I like it.
It's like the new Doctor Strange. I didn't see the end. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, the ending was so... I was like, oh, I only saw the beginning. I fell asleep. That's the story of my life.
Yeah, I was in the same boat with that. I started watching it with my son and I fell asleep. And I'm like, okay, this is basically about a 2.5 hour wizard battle from what I can tell. The plot seems pretty irrelevant here.
All right, if you could live in another historical period, would you? And if so, which one?
Oh, that's hard. Everything's nice right now with AC and technology and...
Yeah, and this isn't like you go visit it and you get to see it, walk around.
There.
You're living there for the rest of your life. Kind of like Back to the Future 3, where Doc went to the Old West and stayed. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to have to go with a period of time where romantics are still alive and poets are still very much alive and thriving.
Oh.
Where like that's like where it's not looked at for men to be romantic, for men being romantic to not be looked upon as like...
What era are you talking about?
I don't know. A period of time, whatever era that is, where romantics and poets
like
were
Emily
like...
Dickinson era, like
yeah,
that? Okay.
like maybe something like that.
You realize...
but they look so hot in all those dresses.
They poured buckets of poop out the windows onto the streets, and that's... They would go down the gutter. That's how...
Well, am I going back in time? Like, are you asking me, can I pick the era and then just go to it? Because then I'll just bring 2020.
No, you got to be in that. You got to be
there.
that person in that time.
Yeah, you're living there for the rest of your life.
I don't want to go.
There's a lot to think through, and I don't want to overthink this little exercise. But I'm assuming I get the knowledge I have now. I would go back to like 1800 and start writing away and be like, here you go, let's go to the Chronicles of Narnia. You're going to love it. Instant bestseller.
And steal the credit, Jesse.
I mean, Tolkien or Lewis wouldn't even be born. And I'd be writing it from memory. And I've only read it like one time when I was a kid. So it would be a wildly different story.
It's like these men are born and they're like, wow, this feels familiar. They read it and they're like, I could have come up with that.
Yeah, I'm just going to... all the good ideas that have been come up with between 1800 and now, I'm going to be like, dude, you guys are going to love this. Batman, okay? Just listen, okay? Here's the concept.
I would probably go Wild West. I'd probably go Old West.
Oh, wow.
Because, again, the bathroom situation is fine because you just... It's not like being poured into the streets because you're just out in the wilderness. So you just kind of take care of that. So it doesn't stink. So that'd be big.
What else is appealing about that?
Yeah, so
to
it
you?
seems like a lot, Cameron, of your decisions about where you're living is coming down to the plumbing situation.
Yeah.
Like when was John?
It's a big
when
deal.
When was John Crapper born?
Exactly. Wait, y'all don't know that's his real name.
Yeah.
No.
Gabs is laughing like he made a joke. John Crapper
No.
invented the
Serious.
toilet. Yeah.
As
What?
he should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well-
is that
well,
where
he
the
didn't-
term comes from? Like that feels weird to ask. Like,
yes, but
Oh.
he didn't invent it. He was the second guy. He made it mass market. Like he's the one who like rolled it out. The invention
Wow.
technically existed previously, but
You guys, how famous must you feel to have crap be used on a daily basis?
oh
Yeah,
my
what a-
God.
that'd be your
what a
name.
legacy.
He invented the crapper. Wow.
or I could just go back in time to the era right before he invented the crapper, invent it, and then that would take care of both my issues. Number one, I'd be really rich and famous forever. And number two, no sewage in the streets because I invented the
There you go.
crapper.
And
there you go.
no foul language that your mom tells you not to say the word crap. So there you go.
There you go.
Everybody be saying strang like as a cuss word.
I don't know for certain. I'm sure this is documented somewhere. But do we know for sure that crap wasn't already in the parlance of the time? And he's like, well, my name's Crapper. I should probably come up with a product that solves the problem. You know?
So
knows?
you're saying that his name determined his career. Like if a parent names their child Jeeves, he's going to be a butler. I mean, there's really nothing else you can.
I'm not suggesting that's what happened. I'm saying, do we know for certain that didn't happen? You know?
No, we don't know that for certain.
No, we don't know.
Jamie, where would you go? Would
I
you?
got nothing. I really like everything we have right now. If I'm going to go anywhere, I'm going to probably go back to college and do things a few different, but that's not a new era. So there's that.
Okay, let's see a couple more. Here we go. What's one thing you're unbeatable at? Unbeatable.
I don't know about unbeatable. I feel like I'm a pretty formidable cornhole player.
Wow.
As Cameron has seen.
I beat you.
Well,
Oh, then you're not
one-on-one.
unbeatable.
It was not one-on-one. It was not one-on-one. It was
Oh.
playing on teams. So
So you're saying that me and my son versus you and your son, our first time ever playing cornhole, mind you, beating you and your son, you're throwing your son under the bus because you're
It
unbeatable.
was on him.
You're saying it's completely his fault.
I'm just saying it wasn't one-on-one. You can interpret that however you like.
I like to think that I could still like beat my boys at basketball, which is the dumbest thought that has ever come across my brain. But I kind of joke with them like I'm going to beat them, which I never do. So I don't know that I have anything that I'm unbeatable at. Nothing.
Gabs.
I can crush a bag of candy
Yeah.
faster than anyone.
Oh, that's good.
That's pretty
Yeah.
pretty useful.
Which actually, okay, recently, apparently it came to light that Skittles are like toxic for humans.
Well,
And
duh.
they shouldn't even be like on the shelf. But I'm just thinking they're a ball of sugar.
All
like,
that
it's just
dye.
harmless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like actually like chemicals in it.
Yeah,
How do you think
And
they... Gabs. How do
look, ignorance is bliss.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. People need Skittles.
wanna know.
You'll be fine. These are just scare tactics. Who cares? People drink Gatorade all the time, and that looks like, fluorescent paint. It's fine. Don't worry about
Yeah,
it.
and they say it's healthy for you.
Yeah, exactly.
I do it.
Okay, last one. What's your best college memory?
Oh, I mean,
Jesse has a library of
yeah,
them.
that's what I'm saying. I feel like one of those last scenes of The Office, or like when Dwight asked Michael, "Hey, what was your favorite memory?" And he's like, "All of them." Not to be sentimental, but I had a blast in college. Like, it would be hard to identify a single memory in college that was the best. It was just a good time.
I wish I could go back to college and have the kind of experience that you just said. I did not have a blast in college. I was having a lot of fun, but it was like not appropriate and don't remember a lot of it. I wish if I could go back, I really would want to do college over, and I'd want to be like, have fun and make friends and do all the fun things. I want those years back.
Jesse and I were at a unique university in the sense that it was a Christian school and it was a residential campus. So everybody had to live on campus. It was about 4,000 students. So it was small, but it was Division I athletics. So like we're playing all the huge schools, all the Big 12 schools and stuff like that. And so it was this weird thing of like you knew everybody, but it was big enough that there was a ton of stuff to get involved in, but there was this weird kind of bubble culture because we all lived there, and it was a really interesting environment and a lot of fun. I agree, Jesse.
I don't know this. Is that where y'all met? This is totally off subject, but
no. We just happened to go to the same school. Jesse, years later, interned at Relevant. That's how we met.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. But two proud ORU grads,
Biffles from the get-go.
Yeah, there you go.
Gabs, what's your favorite college memory?
I don't have one. I really don't. I'm going to be honest and say that I'm still taking classes right now, and I really never had the college experience to where like I actually went to university and stayed at a dorm or any of that. Like I've always done online school while I have worked. And I usually only do like a class or two at a time. But it's been great. So the whole thing is a great memory.
Jamie, you could do that. You could just start taking classes again.
Well, I don't want the education again. I just want the experience.
You should, Jamie, I think you should start like an old school scenario where you just start a sorority where you do all the fun college stuff.
Right. As like a 44-year-old mom. Yeah, that sounds exciting. Yes.
Just start a community group.
Yeah.
Honestly.
That's what it is.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, there you go. So there's some random table topics. I love doing those because I feel like I get to know you guys a little more each time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before we wrap things up, I want to thank Eugene Cho for joining us today. Make sure to check out bread.org to see how you can help bring an end to world hunger. Also, while you're online, head over to relevantmagazine.com to see all of our content every day. We're posting the intersection of faith, life, culture, and justice every weekday. Also, while you're there, the summer issue of Relevant is available for free. It is presented by our friends at World Vision and features conversations on the student debt crisis, celebrity church culture. We have culture shapers like John Favreau, Naomi Rain, and a lot more. Go check it out. It's available for free thanks to our friends at World Vision. Also, if you are a Relevant Plus subscriber, you can get your ad-free enhanced edition right there in your account dashboard. And if you haven't checked out Relevant Plus, it's the best way to experience our content. It's ad-free everything. This podcast, ad-free and exclusive subscriber podcast each week of uncut interviews with a lot of these people that you're hearing like 3 or 4 or 5 minutes here on the show. Well, you want to hear the other 40 minutes of that conversation? Yep. Become a Relevant Plus subscriber and you'll get that podcast every week. Also, unlimited reading and ad-free reading at relevantmagazine.com and a lot more. Go check it out. Plans start as low as $250 a month. And we very much appreciate the support from all of you who are subscribers. Also, while you're at the site, make sure to check out our weekday devotional series, Deeper Walk, which is presented by Lumo. There's a morning devotional email you can sign up for, or you can just check out that day's entry in our faith section on the website. Yeah, I guess that'll do it. On that note, we'll wrap it up. I'm Cameron Strang.
I'm Jesse Carey.
I'm Jamie Ivey.
I'm Gabrielle Griffin.
And we will see you next time. Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Relevant Podcast. Check out our features, interviews, and news updates every day at relevantmagazine.com. And make sure to follow Relevant on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest. For more great podcasts, browse the shows on the Relevant Podcast Network, which you can find at our site. And while you're there, don't miss the all-new era of Relevant Magazine. A new issue releases every other month at relevantmagazine.com.
I will have the greatest nose in the history of humanity.
Relevant Podcast Network.